It's called Milk and Miles. Milk and Miles, balancing breastfeeding and travel requirements. So this one also is not too uncommon, but I think in this scenario, it's a little bit more uncommon. And the question is, we have an employee currently breastfeeding her 1.5-year-old child, 1.5-year-old child. And she shared that she cannot travel for work due to breastfeeding. Her role requires her to travel as part of the job. In a situation like this, what are our options? Now, the first thing I would say is if the child's 1.5 years old and the role requires travel and now she can't travel, I mean, has she not had to travel in the last 1.5 years? So I would want to know that as part of answering this question. I don't know that in this scenario. So has she traveled before and now all of a sudden there's something unique about this particular travel situation that she isn't able to? But Bert, I'm going to throw it over to you and get some perspective.
Yeah, so first of all, I think that there's a couple laws out there that were passed in the last couple years. There's the Pregnant Workers Fairness Act. There's also the Pump Act, which is the protecting the right to pump at work law. And so I think the employer is squarely within those provisions. First of all, Phil, I'm glad you read the question, specified that the child was 1.5 years old. I didn't see the point in there. I first read it that she was breastfeeding her 15-year-old child. But again, I don't want to pass judgment here. But so a 1.5-year-old child. And I think under the Pregnant Workers Fairness Act and under the Pump Act, we have a duty to engage in the interactive process with the employee to find out, first of all, if there's an actual prohibition by her medical or her healthcare provider that literally prohibits her from traveling for work. I've not heard of that. I believe that people can still travel while they're breastfeeding, and that they can pump. And I think we have the right to engage in a reasonable accommodation discussion with her to see if there's something other than eliminating the travel. If that's an essential part of her job, we have to reasonably accommodate, and that might mean that we allow her time during traveling to pump and provide her maybe something for her to store the milk in while she's traveling, something like that. But as far as eliminating an essential function of the job, I don't think the employer is under an obligation to do that.
Yeah. And I think for me, there is that element of has she not traveled in the last year and a half, right?
Yes.
And it could be that she's new to this particular role and it's required. There's lots of circumstances we don't necessarily know. But it is the interactive process. And I think here you're just trying to figure out, okay, what is the complication of travel? What's the length of travel would probably also make a difference too, right? Are you sending
Right.
me away for a month? Or are you sending me away for 2 days? That probably has something to do with it as well. So there's a few unknowns, but nevertheless, the interactive process, and then probably a little bit further guidance with someone at AIM or at Ogletree to help you navigate that if you're still unsure what to do.
Yeah, and let me just say the Pump Act, which again, it's the Providing Urgent Maternal Protections for Nursing Mothers Act. That law gives nursing employees the right to reasonable break time and a private place to pump breast milk at work. Interestingly, that law applies to most nursing employees for up to 1 year after the child's birth.
Correct.
And so
Yes.
this question says 1.5 years. So maybe we're not within the realm of the Pump Act, but I still think under the Pregnant Workers Fairness Act, we still have an obligation to engage in that interactive process with the employee. And like I said, I think the way to handle this one is to engage in a dialogue with the employee, find out if there's some other medical reason related to the breastfeeding that prevents her from traveling, and then to decide, can we reasonably accommodate or would it constitute an undue hardship? And we are not required under the law to remove essential functions of the position from the employee's job responsibilities.
Yeah, there you go. Well, there's our two burning questions for today. Again, I'll remind you, you can submit those. Producer Nick, how's that done through the program?
That is done. You can actually submit them in the same place that you do ask your regular questions, on the question mark icon to the right of the screen. And also, if you're watching LinkedIn or YouTube, we actually dropped a link in the comments as well too. There's a link that you can go direct to submit your questions as well, and we always have that QR code on the screen. So we all have multiple devices in our pockets and in our car and everything else. We can read a QR code somehow, right?
All right, you get it to us, and we'll do our best to address it and give you some guidance. Bert, I
And
appreciate
Phil, and I will say the response has been overwhelming. I mean, the number of questions that we're getting flowing in from these various sources has really been quite amazing. We appreciate all the viewer participation on that.
Absolutely. I think they're fun, and some of them are very interesting as well.
Thanks for being an on-demand viewer of This Week at Work. Don't forget, you can be part of the show by watching live at 7:30 a.m. Central every Thursday morning, when you can get your burning questions answered by using the question mark icon to the right of the player. In fact, you can ask a question now. Head over to aimea.org. Under Member Resources, you'll find This Week at Work. Click Listen Live to register for our next episode and submit a question. Or follow or subscribe wherever you get your news and entertainment. We'll see you next week when we discuss what's happening this week at work.